I sat in my laboratory, the pale moonlight filtering through the window, casting long, eerie shadows across the floor. My heart beat with a frantic rhythm, a drum of dread against my ribs. Day after day, I had toiled, my hands trembling as I assembled the ghastly companion for my first creation. The task was nearly complete. The separate parts of the female creature lay on the table before me, a horrifying parody of life, waiting for the final spark. As I worked, a storm of conflicting emotions raged within me. I thought of the promise I had made, the desperate bargain struck on the icy slopes of the murder glass. I had agreed to create this being to end my own torment, to grant my monstrous creation a companion and send them away to the vast wilds of South America, far from the world of men. But a darker, more chilling train of thought began to take hold. Would she consent to this exile? She had not made the promise. She might refuse to leave Europe, to abandon the society of her kind. And what if she, with a will of her own, turned out to be even more malicious than her mate? What if she found him repulsive, as I did, and left him? He would be plunged into a despair 100 times more bitter, and his rage would be unleashed upon me anew. Or worse, what if they did love each other? They would have children. A race of devils would be propagated upon the earth, a scourge upon humanity, making our very existence a thing of precarious terror. Had I, a human, the right to inflict this curse upon generations to come, all for my own personal safety? I looked at the half-finished creature on the table. Her features were beautiful, but a cold sweat covered my brow. I saw a fiend, a being capable of untold destruction. My promise seemed a reckless, selfish act. I had been carried away by the creature's eloquence and the seeming justice of his demands. But now, in the quiet solitude of my remote island laboratory, the full weight of my potential actions crushed me. I was on the verge of creating another being like my first, but this one would be 10,000 times more malignant. Just then, I lifted my eyes and saw him. Through the window, lit by the same pale moon, was the demon. A ghastly grin writhed on his lips as he gazed upon my work, his eyes burning with a triumphant hellish glee. He had followed me, his shadow haunting my every step, ensuring I fulfilled my vow. The sight of him, his face a mask of demonic joy, filled me with a sudden, overwhelming revulsion. This was the monster I was about to unleash upon the world, and I was creating a partner for him. In a fit of furious, desperate resolve, I seized the half-formed creature. With trembling hands, I tore it to pieces, destroying the thing I had so painstakingly assembled. The creature saw my action. His grin vanished, replaced by a howl of despair and fury that echoed across the desolate landscape. A sound more terrible than any I had ever heard. He disappeared from the window, and a moment later I heard the sound of a boat pushing off from the shore. I was left alone, the silence of the night broken only by the frantic beating of my own heart. I couldn't stay in that room. The dismembered remains of my work lay scattered on the floor, a testament to my broken promise. I locked the door and threw the key into the sea, sealing away the horror. For 2 hours I paced the sandy beach, my mind a whirlwind of fear and agitation. I was a free man, no longer bound to a pact with a monster. But I knew this freedom was temporary. He would seek his revenge. A short while later, a boat arrived at the island, carrying a letter from my dear friend Henry Clerval. He was in Perth waiting for me and urged me to join him so we could continue our journey. His words were a balm to my wounded spirit, a reminder of the good and love that still existed in the world. I resolved to leave this accursed island at once. But first I had to dispose of the evidence of my grim work. I waited until late at night, around 2 or 3 in the morning, when the moon had set and the world was cloaked in darkness. I placed the mangled remains of the female creature into a basket, weighted it with stones, and carried it down to my small boat. I rowed out several miles from the shore, the dark water lapping against the hull. The stillness of the night was profound, broken only by the rhythmic splash of my oars. When I felt I was far enough away, I dropped the basket into the sea. I listened as it sank, the gurgling sound a final, watery grave for my terrible secret. A sense of relief washed over me. The weight that had oppressed my spirit for so long was finally lifted. I felt my heart lighten, and for the first time in months, a genuine feeling of joy surfaced. The sky was clear, the stars brilliant, and a gentle breeze began to blow from the west. I felt I could finally start to heal, to live again. I trimmed my sails and let the wind guide my little boat, feeling a strange new sense of peace. The gentle rocking of the vessel and the soft whisper of the wind lulled me into a deep sleep. I dreamt of wandering in a beautiful field with Elizabeth, the sun warming our faces. But the dream turned dark. I saw my father's face, pale and distorted with grief, and heard him cry out my name. I woke with a start, my heart pounding. When I opened my eyes, the scene had changed dramatically. The gentle breeze had become a fierce gale, and my small boat was being tossed about on massive, churning waves. The sky was dark and threatening. I had no idea where I was. The storm raged around me, threatening to swallow me whole. I was completely at the mercy of the elements, a tiny, insignificant speck in a vast, angry sea. For what felt like an eternity, I battled the storm, my hands raw, my body aching. I despaired, believing my end had come. But as morning broke, the wind began to subside, and the sea grew calmer. Through the morning mist, I saw land on the horizon. Hope surged within me. I was exhausted, thirsty, and weak, but I was alive. With renewed effort, I guided my boat towards the shore. As I drew closer, I saw a small town and a harbor filled with fishing boats. People were gathered on the shore, watching my approach with curiosity. I felt a sense of relief, believing I had found a safe haven. But as my boat touched the sand, my welcome was not what I expected. Instead of friendly faces and offers of help, I was met with suspicion and hostility. A man, who seemed to be a person of authority, approached me with a stern expression. He spoke gruffly, asking me to account for myself. He informed me that I was under suspicion for a murder that had been committed the previous night. I was stunned, utterly bewildered. Murder, how could that be? I had been at sea, battling a storm. The man insisted I come with him to see Mr. Clerval, the town magistrate, who would hear my story. The crowd murmured around me, their faces cold and accusing. They escorted me through the town, their glares following me like a physical weight. I was led into an inn, into a room where Mr. Clerval sat. He was an old, benevolent-looking man, but his expression was grave. Before he would listen to my story, he said I had to see the body of the victim. My blood ran cold. A terrible premonition seized me, a dread so profound it stole the air from my lungs. They led me to another room. On a wooden bier lay a body draped in cloth. As they pulled back the sheet, I let out a cry of pure, unadulterated horror. Lying there, lifeless and still, was my dearest friend, Henry Clerval. His face was pale, his dark hair matted, and around his neck were the black bruised marks of fingers. The marks of the monster. My monster. My promise was broken, and this was his revenge. The room spun, the faces of the onlookers blurring into a grotesque collage. The weight of this new horror was too much to bear. My strength failed me, and I fell to the floor, consumed by a darkness far deeper and more terrifying than any storm I had ever faced. A long illness followed, a fever of the mind and body, where reality and nightmare merged into one unending torment. My creation had struck again, and once more his victim was someone I loved. I was trapped in a hell of my own making, with no escape in sight.